You know, I really love comic book movies, TV, games, and just in general. There's something so freeing about these characters. There's something so relatable, something that gives meaning and purpose. We care about these characters, and we love them so much. I know that there's this Martin Scorsese mindset of you can't like these things because it's so overdone and it's killing cinema and so overutilized, and a lot of times, if not most times, I disagree with it. Until today. But I really want to continue to talk about these things, especially on this channel, because it's dedicated to me talking about films and stuff. So if you're new here, please subscribe and please hear what I have to say, because I am a fan of the product these come from. I am a fan of these characters, and I really want to see all of these universes, all of these things succeed. So today, I figured I would talk about the worst MCU project. Marvel. What happened, man? This movie blows. I love everything Marvel. Dude, I watched Thor: The Dark World with my friends the other day, and I was defending it because I was trying to make a point that Thor: The Dark World really isn't the worst MCU movie. I think it falls under the same thing that, like, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Eternals, WandaVision, and many other MCU films fall into this kind of pit of, that wasn't that good, and that's mostly because the film does a lot more expository things rather than take time to actually flesh out, do some cool action things. It's trying to build the greater universe it's in, which I do appreciate, and I think films should do that, like Thor: The Dark World and Eternals. I think people get a little bored during their films, and man, I think this film was created because of that. This film was like, oh, you get bored at comic book movies? You think comic book movies are shills of the content they're creating? Well, yeah, no shit. Wow, this movie. We're gonna go into it, okay? We're gonna go over a bunch of things. So let's get into our first point, and I think this is kind of the driving force. And granted, I think this movie kind of killed this for the MCU. So this is my first huge issue with the movie. Viewer at home, I have a question for you. What on earth, on Asgard, is so fucking funny about Gorr the God Butcher? Gorr the God Butcher is one of the scariest, most renowned characters in Marvel Comics. If you don't know him, here's a rundown. Gorr is the God Butcher. He's the God Killer. His sword is the Necro Sword, made out of a symbiote. In fact, it is the first symbiote. There's a comic run called The Unworthy Thor, and I bring this up in all my points about Thor: Love and Thunder. There's this point where Nick Fury gains the ability of the Watchers and tells Thor, in the end, Gorr was right. Gorr the God Butcher was correct. And that makes Thor unworthy. The sheer mention of Gorr's beliefs being right sends Thor spiraling. And in this movie, well, yeah, Gorr is probably the best part of this movie. Even then, it feels like such wasted potential. I can't even lie, like, this whole movie, I'm expecting Gorr to do something, but guess what? All of the stuff Gorr does and the effects it has on Thor and other gods is completely done off-screen. The only thing we get is, like, Guardians of the Galaxy holograms of, like, gods being Hun, which I guess I would have really have liked to see. I know that sounds really sadistic, but with a character like Gorr the God Butcher, I don't understand why everybody's cracking jokes and making fun of everything. Like, why does this movie have to be so funny? Oh, well, if Gorr the God Butcher is not entirely a fully serious character, but he is the most serious in the movie, what does that have to do with anything? Alright, well, let me ask you this. Do you think cancer's funny? In the first scene, we meet back with Jane after how many years? Since Thor: The Dark World, right? She's not in Ragnarok. She's not in Infinity War. Yeah, since Thor: The Dark World, 2014. So, 8 years later, I think. She has cancer now because of the effects of the ether. You know, there was an entire Infinity Stone inside of her. I think that's the route they said. They don't say that in the movie. I'm just assuming as a fan because that sounds correct. But alas, Jane Foster has cancer. In the comics, this run is called The Mighty Thor, in which Jane Foster gets cancer and she acquires the powers of Thor's hammer, making her the Mighty Thor. The more she uses this power, the stronger she gets, but also the stronger her cancer gets, meaning she will die quicker. And there's a lot of jokes in the movie. Like, the first joke we get when we meet Jane is Darcy's in the movie, and she's like, Jane, it's stage 4. And Jane's like, well, out of how many stages do we know of? 4. Wait for pause. And there are plenty of jokes like that in the movie, where Jane is literally, like, frail, she's dying, and I know it... Don't pull that shit with me with, like, yeah, but you could use jokes to make up with humor. The movie doesn't do that. And if the movie doesn't convey that, then how am I the viewer? What, am I just supposed to assume? That, like, oh, no, she's making fun and, like, being in light of this horrible, literally terrible diagnosis. So it's fine. No, the film should really go out of its way to explain we should make fun of it, like, for a reason. I don't think that's a good idea. I think this should have been, like, a more serious plotline. Especially with Gore the God Butcher. Like, Mighty Thor and Gore the God Butcher, and we think it's funny. Those are the two, like, some of the two most serious Thor storylines. One of them is about cancer, one of them is about literal genocide, and it's funny. Like, how is this funny? There's also a big, like, the goats. Oh my gosh, the goats. Why are there screaming goats? They're from the comics! They're from the comics. So was Gore. So was the Mighty Thor. Shut up. The Guardians don't really feel like the Guardians. Granted, they're in this movie for a short amount of time. I just don't understand the amount of jokes in this movie. There's a lot of them. Every 5 minutes, there's a joke that painfully just doesn't land. And it's like that scene in Frozen. Every 5 minutes in Frozen, there's a song. In this film, there are jokes out the wazoo. It's all funny. It's all comedy. And I'm over here like, where's Thor's character arc from Endgame? Down the trash, he's all better now. He hit the gym. Also, what is this? That's not incredibly in bad taste. Like, why would that be a place? This is like, what, a couple months, a year, 2 years after the events of Endgame? People still are suffering. People's lives are ruined. There's like 6 Marvel TV shows that go into that. Why would they make that a place? Granted, you know, to be fair, we have stuff like that in the real world. So excited to ride the Tower of Terror! Not only have you wasted Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher, not only have you brought back Natalie Portman to play the Mighty Thor, and you built her buff. Like, she got huge for this role, and like, it's insane. This is the biggest Chris Hemsworth has ever gotten for a role. You used eternity in this movie. This movie, straight up, uses its potential, uses its ideas, and its, like, elements with the world of Thor in the world of the MCU with all these characters to an extent level of what it would be like if they killed Kane with a bunch of ants. That's just my opinion. They would never do that. They would never. You talk to ants. What? We'll save it for another time. If you want to be the next video, comment below. I'm not gonna clown on this scene either, the entire internet has done that already. What I will clown on, though, is this movie's desperate need to kill off characters to please the audience, but then those characters come back. Korg gets crumbled like a cookie, and immediately, 5 minutes later, Thor grabs him and he's A-okay. They make a joke out of it. Tee-hee, hooray! During that moment, Thor kills Zeus. But it's okay, because Zeus is a big character in Marvel Comics, so we need to introduce him in the post-credit scene again with his son, Hercules, who we'll probably never reconnect with. Gore kills Valkyrie. Valkyrie kind of just walks it off. She's in a hospital, and she's like, I'll be fine, go get him. And later in the movie, Jane dies, but appears in Valhalla with Heimdall, and presumably Loki, meaning all these characters who die in this movie, as well as who have probably died before, their deaths don't matter. because they will probably be brought back with the power of MacGuffin. And guys, it really just comes down to opinion. I'm sure there's a good chunk of people who like this movie. Looking at the reviews, there's actually a good chunk of people that really don't like this movie and don't appreciate it. A lot of people are saying the CGI is bad. I didn't really notice it too much, mostly because I was playing Subway Surfers and watching Family Guy while watching this movie. It really comes down to preference, and I could already imagine the comments being like, you didn't like it because it was a female eccentric Thor movie, which is not the case at all. I'm only saying that because I've been rewatching She-Hulk in preparation for a video. My first Marvel video is actually going to be a She-Hulk video, but I figured I would talk about this first because this is one, my least favorite thing, and two, I think I'd get a better series going to start out with, because if I just started out with a She-Hulk, then everyone would be like, oh, you're sexist and you hate women. When I would have loved a Mighty Thor storyline. I would have loved to see King Valkyrie running New Asgard. I would have loved to see Gore's relationship with his daughter, and we could truly see how his arc happens. Because in the movie, all we have is his daughter died, and, we're just supposed to, he loves his daughter, obviously, because he's a father. And then his gods betray him. And then, immediately...
Feels like a promise. All gods will die.
Very, very cool scene, Mr. Bale, but I gotta ask, why does the camera keep, mirroring your face? Why do they keep changing the shot? I'm looking at the little mark on Christian Bale's face right on his nose by his eye, and it flips. What was the choice to do that in the studio? It confuses me. Look, it's gonna happen. Watch. Why did they do that? There's really not much else for me to say other than the obvious. I just really wish this film... I don't even know, man. I don't know what I was expecting. Taika Waititi can do great stories. He could do serious stories. He made Ragnarok feel so new and inventive. He reinvented Thor as a character, and then they revamped it going forward in Infinity War and Endgame. He redeemed Loki. What happened? And again, this is all my opinion. I'm just thinking about the constant needless jokes, the constant just unfunniness of the movie. It doesn't take itself seriously, and it kind of that's the thing. It offends me as a fan of these arcs. It's like, how do you have so much potential and you do this? You have two of the biggest arcs. I'm making the same points. This movie just is the reason why Marvel is, falling off. And I really hope in this little series I do of all these Marvel films, and in the end, I'm going to rearrange it and make it go from start to finish, and it's going to be really confusing, but that's kind of what the MCU feels like now. And I love the MCU. I love Marvel films, and I hope this isn't a way for me to destroy your image of this movie. I hope to only show you the potential that Marvel can have in the future. We really could have. I've watched so many projects recently. I watched Secret Invasion last night, and all of this, I'm just like, I want to succeed. I really do. I really want all these films to do the best that they possibly can. It's just the needless comedy, the needless effort. It's there's so much that's right and wrong, and it confuses me. It does. I have nothing to say about this movie other than all that. I don't know. I just... It makes me feel bad as a fan. It makes me feel like, well, why can't I just be happy with what I'm given? When, it sucks, because as a fan, I expect the stories that are provided. I expect to know the next chapter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I expect to know the next episode of the world's biggest TV show. I expect to see these stories get adapted that they promise us. You know, when they straight up said Mighty Thor and Gore the God Butcher, how as an audience and as fans were we not supposed to be like, oh, you know? Like, I don't know, man. This film feels unnecessary, and it's also forgetful. And they're never going to tackle stuff on it again. I don't think Taika is ever going to come back, which is unfortunate. But yeah. Thor Love and Thunder is, without a doubt, my least favorite MCU project by a long shot. It made every mistake it possibly wanted to. And it's a shame. Let me know down below what movie you want me to do next. I love the MCU, I love these characters, and I want to see them succeed. Let me know what you want me to talk about next, and I'm going to be brutally honest as I was here. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this new little series I'm going to do over time. Peace out.